So last few videos, I don't know, maybe last week or so, I've been talking about the differences between being self-sustaining, such as living off-grid, and prepping. And I think the channel is doing a lot better. I mean, it's growing actually, so it's kind of interesting. The channel hasn't really done much in almost 2 years now. Well, maybe it's been 2 years. I've been, trying to fish around, trying to figure out what else I can do with this channel and still kind of keep it relevant to off-grid living. Then I started a whole new channel, and that just didn't do well. YouTube just hates that channel, and every time I upload a video, they strike it for some reason or another. So I don't know if I gave up on that channel. I don't know what to do with it. So it's monetized, so I don't want to just give up on it. I'm really trying to think how to make this channel do better, but still keep with the context of off-grid living. And I think I've stumbled onto something, talking about prepping and the differences between what I'm doing and what preppers are doing. Look, the prepper channels are just flying off the shelves. I mean, everybody is watching the prepping channels. And they're always talking about the SHTF situation, the stuff hits the fan. Now, there are some that are more realistic, and I kind of agree with those folks a little bit more, that if you're going to be a prepper, now I have the definition of prepping right here, so I'm going to talk to you about that. But if you're prepping, you're prepping for short-term situations. The power outages are for a week or two. You can handle that with your stockpiles. But if you're talking about SHTF, prepping doesn't cut it. There's just no way prepping cuts it. I don't care if you got 10 years worth of food. At some point, you are going to run out of food. And I just can't seem to convince people of this. Had a guy who's been with me for a terribly long time, probably ever since I started the channel. He was all upset with me last night, telling me that I'm going to make the preppers mad because I'm saying that they're not any good. Well, if he knew the definition of prepping, he would know exactly what I'm talking about. He is not a prepper. He says, I'm self-sustaining, I grow a garden, and I know how to can food, and I've got 3 years worth of stockpile, and I rotate it out. Okay, then you're not a prepper. You're self-sustaining. Although he did not talk about water or any of that stuff. So if you're stockpiling water, you're going to run out. If you are doing a rain catchment, you better be in an area that rains a lot. Missouri gets rain 2 times a year, spring and fall. That means I got to store all that water for all that time in between summer and winter. And it freezes in winter. You got to be like in Washington State to store that much water. So these are the things that preppers don't seem to think about. They stockpile and say, okay, I'm good, and then they thump their chest. They're ornery, and they're you got to stockpile, you got to do what I tell you. And they always have that deep growly voice. And they just all seem to be the same kind of breed, that they know best, and nobody's going to tell them any different. I decided to look up the definition of prepping. Now, my definition of prepping is stockpiling. I've been saying that. If you're stockpiling, you're not going to make it through SHTF. But with us raising chickens and having enough chickens that we can eat 2 meals a day, which is what we eat anyways from the eggs, we can butcher chickens, and we got more chickens coming. We're going to rotate our chicken stock out. We're going to butcher 4 of the older chickens, well, maybe it's 3 of the older chickens, and we're going to keep some of the new babies that we just hatched from the incubator. We can incubate up to 22 eggs. The last time we incubated, ran off solar panels just fine, and we got 15 chickens out of that. We now know how to feed our chickens self-sustainingly without having to buy food. Carolyn I wish I could find it. I don't know what she did with it, but she just put more sunflower seeds in these little bottles, juice bottles. Those will grow and fill the entire bottle up. I feed that to them every night. That's 23% protein. Chicken only needs about 16% protein, so it's actually a little bit too much. The meat birds, they should have about 22% protein, so the sunflower seeds are just enough. And if we run out of sunflower seeds, we can give them an egg, because an egg contains 93% protein. Then we can feed them all the roughages and the foliages and all that stuff around here. They'll have plenty of food, everything they need. And we've been doing it. It's not like that we're theorizing. We have done this. This is what we are doing. And that's the other part that I don't agree with preppers. Preppers don't test themselves. They sit around, oh, you gotta do it my way because I know everything. But they don't have any clue. There are so many holes that I find in people who are not self-sustaining, who don't try to test themselves every day and find their failures in their systems every day. I find failures in what we do all the time, and I'm always improving and always, but that's because I've done it for 2 years straight now. And prior to that, we traveled around the country in a truck camper and a pop-up camper. So we've been testing ourselves, and we still find flaws. Imagine if everything has just went bad and you can't get anything to fix what you have. Somebody brought up my health. Said that, well, what are you going to do about your health in an SHTF? Well, the same thing I do now. I don't go to the doctor. I do not rely on the doctor. The doctor, I haven't been to the doctor in years, and I won't go. What are you going to do about your teeth? I'm not going to go to the doctor. Carolyn and I don't go. So what changes? Well, you're going to get older. Okay, well, you're going to get older and then you will die. That's just natural. I'm not afraid of death. And I think that's what a lot of preppers are. They're just afraid to die. And so they're going to try to survive all they can. But in the end, you're going to grow old and die. I mean, I don't understand. What did people do in the 1800s? They didn't have the doctors we have now or the medications we have now. They got the old doctor and he'd come out and he'd say, yeah, looks like you need to be bled. And they'd poke holes in him and they'd bleed him out to try to get the fever or the smallpox out or whatever. So it's no different. If you're going to get sick, you're going to get sick and you're going to die. Now, the other thing is I do try to take care of myself, I think, better than most. Carolyn and I both. We have went on this carnivorous diet, and I am just completely satisfied with how a meat diet has changed my health just immensely. Everything is better on a meat diet. The inflammation, my shoulders don't hurt anymore, my knees don't hurt anymore. Carolyn's back, I haven't heard her complain about her back in ages. I mean, she's out here cleaning and doing things and making seeds and out there in the garden. In this heat, no less. She hates the heat. And she'll come in and say, oh, my back. And she'll lay down for a second or sit down for a second, and back up she is, gone again. 2 years ago, if her back got laid up, she'd be down for 2 weeks, easy. So the meat diet has really improved our health. And the more I research it and the more I listen to carnivorous diet doctors, the more I realize the reason wasn't convinced about a meat diet prior to now is because sugar is addictive. Carbohydrates are addictive. Carbohydrates turn into sugar. People will say, no, you got to have carbohydrates. Okay, then why don't you need sugar? Why don't you just take a spoonful of sugar and eat it? Because it's the same thing. People are diabetics. Why? They're eating carbohydrates. Well, what do preppers do? They stockpile carbohydrates. Rice, corn, wheat. It's all carbohydrates. Sugar. I'm trying to rotate out and grow and raise protein, meat. And I feel like that in the end is just going to be better. My stomach is less fatty than I've been in years. Losing weight, gaining muscle mass. It's pretty incredible. This guy who messaged me that's been a long time follower, I don't think he subscribes to my channel, said that, you know, I'm going to make all the preppers mad. Well, not if you understand what the definition of prepping is. It says, I got my phone, I took a snapshot of it. A person who believes a catastrophic disaster or emergency is likely to occur in the future and makes active preparations for it. Okay, so far, that's me and a prepper. We both kind of, you know, I don't know how much so, but we are both in similarness. This is where we completely fall apart at. Typically by stockpiling food, ammunition, and other supplies. Okay, I don't stockpile. The problem I have said repeatedly, that if you're stockpiling, you're going to run out of stockpiles. If that's your only method of survival, is stockpiling, then you're not going to make it. Now, I would say you're trying to survive, a survivalist, but typically survivalists are people who go out in the forest and try to survive with a pocket knife. That's kind of what a survivalist is. Now, some people are going to say, Rob, you're just playing semantics. Prepping and self-sustaining is the same thing. Well, actually, no, it's not. If you Google prepping, you're going to get, hey, you got to do it my way. You got to stockpile rice and beans, and then you're going to have carbohydrates, and you got to have that because, you know, I'm big and, you know, got man boobs and all that. Well, well, then you're not going to be any healthier when SHTF actually happens. You're just going to continue to degrade. You cannot get off an addiction just because SHTF happens. You're still going to have the addiction. And then so you got to fight the addiction while you're dealing with SHTF, and you got to go out and do all those things. But nobody is saying anything in these prepping channels how they're going to get off carbohydrates, because you're going to have to get off of them. You're going to have to get off the sugars. You can grow a garden, but you're going to grow carbohydrates. You're going to grow corn. Now, green beans, that's fine, but where's all the proteins and the minerals and all that you need? Meat diet has every vitamin that you need that vegetables can provide. You know, all the vegetables you eat, not one of them provide all the vitamins that you need, but meat does, except one, vitamin C. Vitamin C is in meat, but when you cook meat, it evaporates out. So you got to have some sort of supplement for vitamin C. So if you had a fruit tree or something like that to supplement that one vitamin that you're cooking out, then you would have everything you need to maintain nutrition. Carolyn and I are eating this meat diet. We've been doing it for probably a year now. Carolyn's anxiety is gone, which is really important in an SHTF. To have a week of anxiety because it's too hot or something went wrong, it's catastrophic. Having anxiety or depression, you can't function. So how are you going to maintain life and be able to be on night watch, for example, to make sure nobody's stealing the things you have if you have anxiety? You're mad at the world, or you're depressed and you don't want to get out of bed. I mean, these are real mental health issues that meat seems to be taking care of, because Carolyn has not had anxiety in months. I can't even remember the last time she's had an anxiety attack. There's a lot of things that go into living off-grid and being self-sufficient that preppers are not prepared for. They just have no idea what's getting ready to hit them. So if you'll click that super thanks button down there, I'd really appreciate it. So I hope I can inspire you to live a self-sustaining life so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.